Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking a look through the fabled last 17 vintage Star Wars action figures. Now these are the very last ones in my loose run, where I've been going through them bit by bit and upgrading as I go along, making sure all the weapons are correct and what have you, and then finally getting them back into my display case, get them looking as good as possible. So sadly this is the very last part, but boy oh boy, these figures are fantastic. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's take a look. So the first figure we got here is Lumat, and as you know, I'm sure you're aware, I was never a massive fan of the Ewoks, and I sort of steered clear of them. The only one I think I ever bought was Wicket, and even then it was sort of grudgingly. Shall we say, you know, I never really ran out and thought, oh, I must get my Wicket figure today. I would have just bought another Stormtrooper or something like that, you know. But he is, you know, part of the, if it is indeed a he, part of the Star Wars line. So we'll get him in situ there, and I'll pop him on one of these little bases here just to keep them all fresh. And of course I will at the end show you the entire run now that it's up to date. It's certainly not all perfect, so I do have a few figures that I think in the long run I would like to upgrade and get slightly better ones. Even this one here, he's got a little bit of tanning to the head and the middle part of his body, but nothing that I'm going to be overly worried about. And you do find that with some of these figures, they just haven't aged that well. They're 30, 40 years old in some cases now, and they just haven't really survived. And this was the other one that came out at the same time, which was Paplu. And this one, actually, I think out of all the Ewoks, is probably my favourite one, although let's be honest, he is just a teddy bear. Now, Lumat, we should have pointed out that he's got the hood here, and he's got the satchel, which is carrying, I believe, arrow quivers, and of course he's got his bow there. And Paplu just had a little old staff. He didn't have anything too fancy. And you know, I know there are people who absolutely sort of love the Ewoks, but I was never really that big a fan, and I just think they looked a bit, you know, when Jedi came out, they were just a bit too much like a teddy bear, more than anything for me, and that was where I sort of fell out of love with them a little bit, but not to take anything away from Jedi, which I still think is just fantastic. But there you go, and that my version of Paplu there has actually survived really quite nicely. So I'm not going to be too disappointed with that. So there's the first two anyway. So the next one we got is a Malaman, a really sort of strange creature, massive as well, and it comes with this staff here. Now my staff on my carded one is really sort of bent round in like a curl. I've got the big bubbled tri-logo version as the card version. But loose, I mean, this one used to turn up when we had the shop, but he is a scarce one. There's no two ways around it. And often the staff would turn up, sometimes it was bent or chewed off. Tiny little feet, just not a great looking figure in all honesty. But he is what he is, I suppose. And this was one of the, as all of these ones are, these are part of the last 15 wave now. And this was like the very last hurrah for the classic line, beyond the droids and Ewoks, of course. But when I had him on display, in the display case, it would always be something along those lines. So he'd sort of have the his staff sort of somehow resting against his shoulder. Something like that. So that's probably how I'll have him in my my display case, but he might take a little bit of jiggery pokery just to keep him in there. But yeah, not a bad figure, but not one that I ever really sort of, you know, I didn't buy it at the time. I bought it a few years afterwards. I was able to get, I have mentioned this on the channel before, I got a very lucky lot of figures which were all sort of last 17 ones, all on tri-logos, and they were only 29p each, and a Malaman was one of them, and that's the one I've still got today. So that's the only time I ever bought it. I paid 29p for him. I don't think I would have chosen this figure as a kid. There's just nothing attractive about him to me, you know, so hey ho, but he's a rare one all the same. So good to have. So next we've got Anakin Skywalker, equal competitor with the Emperor for the best flares in the whole of vintage Star Wars. Look at that. Wow. This was always one of the most common of the last sort of 17 figures. It would turn up all the time, and we used to sort of traditionally knock him out in the shop at about $9.99 a pop. He is what he is. I think it's a really great sculpt. It's just a really nondescript figure. It's real, I'd say, one for the collectors more than anything. And once again, if I was a kid and I had this one, I don't think it would have been a figure I would have rushed out to buy. I'm not even going to bother putting him on a stand because he's got such big flares there. He just doesn't need it. So next we've got R2-D2 with his pop-up lightsaber, and this is a real cool one. I have to say, once again, not one I got at the time. So you sort of turn the head like that, and the lightsaber rises inside. Now you have to be very careful buying one of these because apparently there are quite a lot of sort of bootleg lightsabers out there, but I checked mine. There are ways to check it online, and the site I used to check all my weapons in the end was one called the Imperial Dignitary, and it was really great, and every single weapon, all the different variations are on there, and thankfully, as I suspected, I didn't have any imposters. But this is a scarce one, and the weapon is equally quite rare, so do look out for that one. But I always used to have them in my cabinet like that. And this was one of the ones, once again, as I said, this was one that I had brand new, and I picked up 3 of them, 3 carded ones, all at the same time. I kept the best one carded. I opened one because I didn't have it for my loose set. And bearing in mind, before you send the hate mail, this was 1987, so don't have a go at me. The third one, I guess I must have traded on with someone, back in the day. But yeah, a cool little figure, and he's a nice character, and I've always liked R2-D2 figures, so they're brilliant. Now the next one is the A-Wing pilot. Now I never had the A-Wing toy. I got close to buying a loose one a couple of times, but I never actually bought the toy, even though I love the figure. I think he's really super cool. This one's definitely going to need to stand on a base, so we'll see if he goes on like that. But yeah, I thought this guy was even cooler than the B-Wing pilot. This one was he's a little thinner, and he's just a great sculpt. Now the gun, unfortunately, when I came to check, this is not the correct gun, and it's the same for another figure a little bit later on. I've got my Imperial Gunner. This is the grey version of this gun, and there is a version which is dark black, and that's probably the harder one to get. However, as you may remember, I do have a little bag. I'll just show it here. These are all spare guns that I've got, lightsaber and stuff. They're all original. And what I'm going to do, now that I've come to the end of my Star Wars collection, I'm going to sell on my spare weapons. And I think they'll easily fund me getting a couple of black blasters here. Now the A-Wing pilot never actually holds his gun very well, so what I tend to do is I pop a little bit of blue tack just in on there where his hand is going to hold it, like so, and that just keeps it in position like that when he's on display in my display case. So that's how I'm going to have the A-Wing pilot, which I believe is a really nice figure. Now next we have Barada, so just grab him here. Now this was one which had fared very badly in the 30 odd years that I've had him on display, so I had to go out and get a replacement, and this replacement isn't bad. He's got fairly stiff arms, I'd say sort of 9 out of 10 for his limbs. A tiny bit of wear on the end of the backpack, which is actually really common. But my Barada had got very badly faded, and I wanted to get another one. So it took a bit of tracking down, but I still sold my old one on. I got about £45 for it, I think, which was fine considering its condition. And this one in the end then cost me about £90. So it's an expensive figure to find nowadays. And I do regret my one going bad, but these things happen. So he's quite quite a mean dude, isn't he, old Barada? And I'm not sure the best way. I think it's this hand is the one that holds his staff. Like so. So move the arm down a bit. Maybe up like that. Maybe just so he's a bit more menacing. Not really sure, but that's pretty cool, isn't it? I sort of feel like the staff should sort of match the bottom there, like so. I think that's actually a bit better. And when he's face on in the cabinet, that'll look really, really great, I think. Because he was a cool figure. Just a bit of a flimsy outfit. They certainly beefed him up a bit for the card. And then we've got EV99, so it's the only other droid we've got in this run. And this was another figure that you often, when you see them advertised, it's got like a loose arm and loose legs, and I'm almost too scared to even move it, because this is really, really a really tight figure that we had several through our hands, you know. He is indeed going to need a display stand, because his legs are slightly crossed over there in actual fact, so we'll pop him on one of the stands there. I believe this is the tallest figure as well, even slightly taller than the IG-88, or maybe they're about the same height. But there we are, he looks alright, doesn't he? Yeah, I think he's okay. I said no missing limbs, and the mouth opens and closes on this one. That's about like that. That's about the only action you're going to get. I'll have him with his mouth open. But he was always a great figure, this one. I mean, it's a tough find. It just basically is. And you don't come across this one in really nice nick very often. But it's so fragile, so you need to be super careful with it. I'm almost tempted to send it in for grading just so I don't damage it. And you never know, I might send a few of these in one day. But there we go. So that's about halfway through, if you can believe it. And we've got another load of brilliant ones coming up. So I'm going to rearrange the camera, and then we'll get those out. Next we got one which I think it gets a bit of a bad rap, poor old Han Solo in his carbonite, because I don't think they could have done much else with it, in all honesty. Possibly they could have given him a gun. I don't know. I mean, I actually sort of like him, you know, and he fits pretty snugly just in like that. That's how he's supposed to sort of go, and that's how the European one is sort of presented in the card like that. And I always felt it was good value for money, because in effect you were getting quite a bit of plastic for your cash there, you know. So I'm not sure how I'm going to display him in the camera. I seem to remember in the old days I had the carbonite sort of leaning up against the side of the cabinet like that, and then Han was sort of just in front of it, just like that, you know, and that seemed to work okay. So I think for the sake of today's video, that's how we'll have him, just like that. But yeah, I think it will just be in the cabinet, it'll just be leaned back a little bit more, a bit like he was on Jabba's wall there. But a great figure. I think he's all right. I really do. I think that's a pretty cool figure, that one. So next we've got the runner-up in the best flares in vintage Star Wars, which is my Imperial Dignitary here. And this was always sort of a bit of a weird figure, this one. I suppose he was sort of around the Emperor, wasn't he, with sort of, you know, giving a bit of, I don't know, regality possibly to the Emperor figure. And I think they were okay. But it was always a tricky figure to get. So usually when they turn up, the nose has been rubbed on it. And even on quite a selection of carded tri-logo ones, the nose often was turning up unpainted. And I remember when I was looking to finish my my carded collection, this is one of the ones I needed, because I never got it at the time, never found it, you know, post Star Wars cheap or anything. And I had a real job finding one of these, with even carded, with a really perfect nose. So if you do find one and you've got one with a nice nose, as it were, then you're doing pretty good, you know, because they are actually quite scarce. A funny old figure, but you know, it is what it is. Now this next one is my second favourite of all the last 17 figures. It's the Imperial Gunner, and I absolutely love it. I really do. this one, I think like a lot of them, has got a slight mould defection along his helmet there, and I don't know, I think it's just common on all of them, but apart from that, this is one of the good ones that came into the shop, and he is a great example of this figure. Once again though, sadly, I realised when I pulled these out, I've got the grey gun and not the black gun that's supposed to come with this one, so I was a little bit disappointed in that, but it's not the end of the world. As I said, I've got a whole bag of guns to trade there, so I'll easily be able to get shot of those, and that'll more than amply cover me getting a the correct gun. And then I can always sell these ones as well, but these were the wrong ones. But yeah, so that should be sort of jet black rather than the grey. But apart from that, he is a fantastic figure. I absolutely love the Imperial Gunner. That's really, really superb figure, that one. So that's cool. Next, we have another one which is quite cool, and that's Lando in his general's outfit. This is always a toughy one to find with the cloak intact here. And he's not bad this example. I'm quite pleased with him in actual fact. And this is another one which comes with a weird old gun. I think they call it the Palace Blaster. And I seem to remember he didn't hold this one very well either. But I am glad that they did release General Lando, because it is a cool little figure. So let's see if it just fits into his hand all right. Well, I think is he going to hold it okay? Yeah, look at that. And when you look at a figure like that one compared to the earlier examples, the detail on it, he's going to drop it. The detail compared to the later figures is really something. It's changed so much, and it just shows how technology had advanced and how the figures had got a tiny bit more. Well, the moulding had just got better. Basically, it was as simple as that. You know, things had improved in the world of toy production. So I'm going to pop a little bit of blue tack in there again, and that should just keep the figure in place. But he's a good one. I don't mind Lando General one little bit. I think that's a really nice figure, that one. So next we do have my favourite last 17 figure, and that's the Luke Skywalker in his Stormtrooper outfit. So I think this is an absolutely fantastic figure. Mine's got, once again, the tiniest bit of sun, but I don't mind because it's all complete. And once again, this is one of the ones I found two Luke Stormtrooper carded ones back in that find that I had, and they were both pretty rough cards. I mean, they really were. They'd been on the shelf, they'd been knocked around a bit, and they were not in the greatest of shape. However, I bought them both because they're only 29p, and I opened the worst one, which was almost open anyway, and that's this one here. So he comes with the all black blaster, which I believe is itself now getting quite tough to find. And when I had this one on display, I'd have the blaster in his hand like so, and usually I think I just have the helmet either next to him or in his hand, but I have a funny feeling he doesn't hold it very well. But we just see if I can. Is he going to hold it? Yeah, he doesn't hold it very well. So I think, and I'm not going to put it on his head, so I think I'm just going to have him with the helmet between his legs, like that. I think that looks pretty cool as a display piece, like that. And everyone knows that came together. What a shame they didn't do Han Solo in a Stormtrooper outfit as well, because that would have been super cool. But, you know, we have to go to the new Power of the Force ones to get that, don't we? There we are. But these are already, it's shaping up so well, aren't they? They really are fantastic. Now we've got another Luke figure, and it's Luke in his Endor sort of battle poncho. And this is another sort of cool figure. It's a shame his Biker Scout helmet isn't detachable like the Leia version. But apart from that, he's all there. He's got the belt, and he also has a holster for his gun there, which is pretty cool. But I always had him holding the gun, as is my way, and it comes with this rather clunky looking Palace Blaster, which is not great. So I'm hoping this one will go in okay. But if not, I shall get out the trusty blue tack. Is that going to hold it? And it's in, but I don't think it's going to hold it somehow. And no lightsaber either, which is a shame, isn't it? So I think we should feel a little bit cheated on that, in actual fact. But let's see how we get on. Yeah, he goes on to the stand. Okay, he's all right. It's okay. It's an okay figure, but it's not the greatest. It is what it is, I suppose, isn't it? It is what it is. So now we got a couple more Ewoks. So the next one is Romba. He's the big fat Ewok. He's all right. He is. He's an Ewok. Got his spear, and for a lot of people, this was a tough Ewok to find. It's quite common, carded. In fact, I actually have a spare Power of the Force carded one at the moment, which I shall probably trade on if I can find something suitable to trade it for, vintage-wise. But, he seems to be, around that particular one. And then we've got the last of all the Ewoks, which is Warok, which is this little fella. So once again, this guy's got a little bit of sun fading, not a lot. He also has the sort of the side thing holding the arrows there, quiver with the arrows in, and you can have the actual bow in either hand. It's quite nice to have him just sort of carrying it, so I'll just see if it slips in there quite easily or not, or it may be better in the other hand. I think this one has a little bit more room. You have to be so careful with these, because they do break easily if you're not careful. So there we are. That might be the safest way to have him, in actual fact, is like that. Now he stands up pretty good, these big thick Ewoks, so I'm going to pop him just over there, like so. And we come to our final little figure here, which is Yak Face. So Yak Face, he's one of those ones which in a lot of cases, people, we don't really understand why he's so sought after. I mean, I know it had very, very limited distribution in America, but it was widely available over here in the UK and Europe. And we had no trouble getting hold of them. As I've said before on various videos, back in the day when we had our shop, we would photocopy. I remember doing it. We lined up all the most expensive last 15 figures on the photocopier, and just took a photocopy of it. And we created these strips, and we give the strips out to the boot sale dealers, and they were the ones who were diving in the back of every car that pulled up at the boot sale. Don't forget, this was the sort of the early to mid 90s, and we said for every sort of one of Yak Face that you find, we'll give you 15 quid. And then I think who was the next most expensive one? I think at the time, it was possibly a Malaman, an EV99. We would be like a tenner each, and then Han and Carbonite, the gunner, would be like 8 quid. Luke Stormtrooper, I think, was another one. That was a tenner. Basically, the whole lot were on there. And people will come in, dealers would come in, and they would have found a few, and we didn't quibble. We didn't matter too much over price, because we had we sent them all to the States. We couldn't sell them in the UK. They just weren't, the price of Yak Face in the mid-90s was about 50 to 75 pounds, and you could not get that in the UK. You just couldn't sell them for that. And we were all about turning it over. So we had at one point, I do remember, we must have had 2 carded ones and I think 9 loose ones, and we just sent them all to America, and we traded them for brand new figures that were coming out that we couldn't get in the UK. Stuff like the Aliens and Predator figures, stuff like that, superhero stuff that we couldn't get. And that was how we sort of traded our vintage along. We always kept 1 or 2 of each one in stock, but on the whole, most of these figures here we just sent en masse to American dealers, where Star Wars was already much, much hotter than it was in the UK. But that was how it went. That was the 90s for you. But there you go. Look at them all. They just look fantastic, don't they? They really, really do. I cannot wait to get them all into the cabinet now, and do one final sweep through. Now, we've definitely not got them all perfect. So I'm going to, be on the lookout for a new Max Rebo and a Luke Besbin. There's a couple other figures that I'd like to improve, and I'm still not quite there with having all the correct weapons with all the right figures, but I'm very, very close. So I think it's been a good fun exercise to go through these. And of course, the next thing I'm going to need to do is sort out my carded figures. So once again, I shall go back to square one, and I am missing on those now because I did trade a few along back in the day. I am going to need to fill in a few little holes, but we'll have a look at what we got anyway, all in due course. So here we are, right back to the very first 12, which have got their own dedicated little backdrop display case here on one of the original display stands. And I've got all my variants in with my main collection as well. All the way down through Star Wars and Empire, a few waves of Empire, then all the Jedi figures, and finally the Power of the Force that we've just seen. So thanks very much for watching today. I hope you have enjoyed looking through me going through all these figures over the last few months. It's been a lot of fun. If you have, do please give the video a thumbs up. Do please subscribe for regular vintage Star Wars content. I've still got loads more to go through, literally boxes and boxes of stuff that need a good sort out. And I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.